Okay, so the first step here is you got to get this ring off. This is a compression ring that seals both halves together with the rubber diaphragm in the middle, and you can just barely see the rubber diaphragm there in the middle here that's been pinched. Otherwise, this unit appears to be in pretty good shape. Don't see anything else really wrong with it. The clevis is okay and all of that. So I'm starting by taking basically a scratch awl into the corner right here and trying to pry up. You only need to do one side all the way around, so I'm prying this up here. I'm going to work my way around, so I'll show you that as I get going. Okay, so I started the project with a scratch awl, forced this in there, and then used a beat up paint can opener to pry up one of the corners. And I had this little curved pick kind of tool. I think I got this at like Harbor Freight or something. Pretty neat little utility though, for the most part, with a bent end. And essentially here, as you can see, I've pried up this corner and I'm going around just one side, pinching that in against the edge of the metal and bending this up. And I did mark a V at the beginning and top and bottom where this started, because you need to know where this outlet is going to line up. So that's real important. So I'm going to just keep going, essentially taking this piece inside here, prying it up, and working my way all the way around like that. All right. Okay, so here's a little more now. I started at this corner, this edge, and I'm working my way all the way around. And it's kind of rough, and it does mark up the inside of this a little bit, scratch it up a little bit when you try to take the ring off. That's the only way I can figure out how to do it. And honestly, I had help figuring that out. Sporto72 on the Pelican Parts forum is the one that has this idea. So I'm just videoing the process here I'm going through to do the same thing he's already done. All right, keep going. Okay, so I'm back now, and the little clamp here that goes all the way around this servo is off. This is what it looks like when it's done. The bottom half basically stayed. The top part that's kind of chewed up looking is where I pried it off with the screwdriver and other tools, the stuff you see behind the screen there. So you got to save this and clean that up and basically reuse that where it's nothing but trouble. So anyway, here's the unit now, and it's going to separate into two pieces. So lifting that off, there's the inside of the main unit, and here is the diaphragm. Okay, so this piece was a real pain to take off from the clevis and attachment arm. Basically, this is a 1 1/16 inch nut, special kind of threaded component that's flared to keep it inside the pocket. And it had underneath it this supporting structure that keeps it isolated from touching the back of the plate when it's depressed in. Okay, and then basically has an inner and outer plate. So there's the inner plate here and the outer plate here, and that was the outside component. That was in there like that. So you take that piece out, and what you end up having is this diaphragm here. So here you can see I've cleaned, painted, and restored each of the vacuum servos. I wire wheel brushed them, really cleaned them, and then primed and painted them. Which you know, they'll look nice. Putting them back, they'll be fine. You don't see it anyway when it's there, but nevertheless they're cleaned and ready to go. So this is the one I've been working on that was originally on the car, and I've cleaned it and painted it. And you can see this was my first beta test diaphragm here that we made, and see how it turned out and fits the mold pretty well.
and then next I'll reassemble the diaphragm, and this is the other one that came out of the car, what it looks like. Same kind of problem really, as it warps on one end there where the holes are in the servo for really, I think, for venting. But unfortunately that lets a lot of heat in, and the heat causes the diaphragm to warp, as you can see there. So I had to use a lot of modeling clay to fill that in as an example. But this one too is torn in multiple locations. So the next step then is going to be to pour the second part of my mold, and then I can make another diaphragm. Okay, so here's my new mold, and I had poured the bottom side of this down on a clear piece of acetate before I turned it over, as you see it now, and used a polyurethane material from BJB Enterprises to make the mold. And so now I've glued on it what will become air ports to release the air from the mold, and a filler tube here to be able to inject the material. And then I'm going to currently pour the top part of the mold so that we can make a diaphragm here next. Okay, so here's the mold that's been poured, and this is a polyurethane. Specifically, it is by BJB Enterprises, and it's TC816. It's a urethane, polyurethane. And so that's what it looks like. And so this is my filling port tube, and these are air relief tubes. So I'm going to pull those apart and see if I can separate the mold. Okay, so you can see the mold's apart now, and it took quite a bit of gentle working here all the way around with a little shim and some wood shims, working my way around real slow, and but eventually the top came off here, and you can see a little bit of the clay that kind of stuck in some of the crevices in here. So I've been cleaning this a little bit, clean it up, and you can see here that it's really nice, reasonably smooth, and looks pretty good. You can see where it reproduced the warp in the original, which is right here with what's left when I pulled it out. But all in all, this is really a pretty darn clean, nice mold, and that's really even. So I feel really good about getting a positive result here with this. So, and you can see I've got, 3 little registration marks here and here, and how that goes together. So I will proceed next to clean it up a little bit more, and then I'm going to mix up the silicone, and I'm going to inject silicone and see how mold comes out. All right, I'll record that next. All right, thanks.
Okay, so I'm back, and I prepped the mold. I have mixed my material, and it's currently in the vacuum. And as you can see, I'm going down vacuum on the product there. It raised the head on it and released all this air, and now it's dropping back down. It's only been on there about 10 minutes, maybe. I don't know, it was a little higher than that. It's about 28, dropped to 27 or so. 26.5 inches of mercury on it. But so it's drawing that down. This is the product I'm using again, BJB Enterprises 45 Shore A room temperature curing silicone. All right, and then this is my mold, and got a filler port here, and I got a $8 syringe kind of thing off Amazon here to be able to inject into this, and my straw tubes for air ports that will allow the material to raise up. And inside of this, hold on a second. So this is what it looks like on the inside.
and the prepared mold, right, and the registration's there. And so I just put this down on there like that. Drops into place just right, fits fantastic, nice and solid. I have it tilted up slightly, so this is the farthest and highest port for air release in the mold. And I'm going to inject here and have it come up there. So a few more minutes in the vacuum here, and it'll be ready to roll. All right, here we go. Okay, so now I've got my material, and I'm taking it out of my vacuum, and I pulled it on vacuum for 17 minutes at 27 inches of mercury. And this is the result, so I'm going to roll it around in there some like we need to here to get it to finish blend. It did pull the air out, and then I'm going to pour it into the mold, or I mean into this syringe here, and inject and see how we do. And now we're going to force it into the mold here and see how we do. Okay, so we're going to force it in until it comes up through the air tubes here. Result. All right, so I got a little oozing out the top, I got some coming out the sides, but that's pretty darn solid right there, I think. So I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm now gonna put it in my little baking oven. And I got a little baking oven that I made over here, just a simple cardboard box, and I put a 100-watt bulb in it like that. In that cardboard box, I'm gonna put it in there to bake, and believe it or not, it does awesome. It gets to about 125, 130 degrees for 6 hours, and comes out just right. So that's the result. That's what it looks like. Here's the previous test I just did earlier. Fits in there real nice. It's even. Nice uniform thickness. I wouldn't call it perfect, but I would say it's still a grade A quality. It's good. There's no air bubbles in it. Uniform thickness and shape. It does hold its shape correctly, and fits in there real nice. And then of course this piece will sit into it, of course, eventually, just like that. Put the clamp on it. So, all right. So I'm gonna let it bake, and that'll be a second one here that's identical. All right. Okay, so here's the mold. I took the clamps off, and I've pulled the little straws I had here around each one of these and trimmed off the silicone just to get them out of the way. Turn it up on its end here, and I've started applying a screwdriver into the end and twisting it, working my way all the way around. So got to go slow here, and do this with care, because it will tear the silicone if it pulls too far out. So you just work it out about 1/4 of an inch maybe, and then I'm gonna I want it to release from the thicker side, so I'm gonna stick the screwdriver here and peel up. You can probably see some of that material. I'm gonna peel up the material here, have it come loose all the way around, which it will do. And when it does that, then I can pry it open a little bit more. Now you can see inside here, you can get it come loose from around that joint. And I'm just gonna rotate it around, do a little bit more as I go all the way around, nice and easy. The thing's pretty hot because I had it in my little oven, so it's probably about 120 degrees, 130 degrees. And sometimes I let this thing cool down first before I mess with it, but So I'm gonna go all the way around here and work it with the screwdriver. And you can see it working its way out down there, right? Turn it over again, same thing. And you work it all the way around, it'll come loose. Okay. And then I should be able to slip this out. So there you go. That's what it looks like. Alright, so set that aside. So now I'm going to take my razor. I'm going to trim the air ports off of this piece just barely. I got one here. Alright, so I'm working my way around. Those three pull out nice and easy. And then this side pulls out nice and easy. And there's my mold on the other side. So I'm going to remove these now, pluck these out, remove any remaining silicone. Alright, so all the little plugs come out nice and neat. Alright, so that's out of the way. So this is what she looks like right there. That's the product with mold release and everything on it, right? So on this side then, I'm going to carefully trim off the air port locations. That's it. So, there it is. For all intent and purposes, a new diaphragm. It's got nice thickness, follows the same original contour there to fit in the groove. The inside looks good. Alright, so that's it.
Okay, so I've got a really nice sample here that came out, diaphragm of my mold after I've trimmed it up. And I've inserted the center part of the clamp, diaphragm clamp here. And then the next part goes like this on top of that thing. And then these parts go together on this like this. And it gets reinserted onto the shaft like this. All right, and tighten it up, and so far so good. All right, like that. Okay, so to wrap this up then, fortunately I was fortunate enough to have two of these vacuum servos, one that came out of the car and a spare that my uncle had picked up many years ago. So I've cleaned it up and painted it. It's a little dirty here, I gotta wipe it off, but painted it, and that's ready to go. And here's one of the good diaphragms as an example, right? So that piece fits in there, and the diaphragm connection is this piece, right? So that goes on here, right? And the stud gets connected through there. So go. So that's what it looks like when you put that piece in, right? And the back plate goes on here, and then it gets tightened on here to this middle spindle, right? Like that. And the middle nut goes on there like that. Gets tightened into place, and so that's how it goes together, right? So once that's put together, then you put the piece in the middle and clamp that down. Those go together. Don't forget that the output tube here, vacuum tube that goes up to the control valve, needs to be in the right position, right? So if you're looking at it in this position, let's see, it's usually about there, I believe, is the right spot. So what's that, 10 o'clock, 10:30 or so. Okay, so then when you put it together, this is what it looks like. So what I did here is I went and picked up a marmon clamp, which is used for well, a lot of stuff in the aviation industry, but a marmon clamp. This one happens to be stainless steel. It was 40 bucks online, but it's a lot easier to deal with than trying to reclamp the crimped piece of metal that goes around the end of this thing. So I've done that now, tightened it, and it passes a simple test here. Basically, you can put your finger in the hole here and press down on the diaphragm, and you can't move it. I mean, that thing is in there. Take your finger off of it, push it down, right? Nothing to it. So that's sealed really well. Seems to be working quite well. So I'm going to put that in the car next and see how it goes. If you don't have one of these, you can try to reclamp this back on to the outside perimeter. I was not having very good luck with that at all. It is possible, but I decided the marmon clamp was way better solution long term, because if I ever have to take it apart again, it's pretty straightforward. This thing snaps right on. It's not a big deal, and it's a perfect fit for these particular units. And this is a 135 SM 135/60 is the size. I'm not sure if you can see that there or not, but 135/60. F&S is a manufacturer. I don't remember who that's for, but nevertheless, that's the vacuum servo. So I'm going to put it in the car and see how we do.